as we discussed, the performance of duties are only for the sake of securing the mental purity. It's because every action performed in such a manner will lead to mental purity. And but the catch we saw is that even thinking of as I am the doer will actually defile the action and it will generate the karma. So that's the tricky part which we need to take care of. But there is the highest possibility here. So if we see Shloka 18, rather Shloka 49 of chapter 18, it says, those whose intellect is unattached to everything and everywhere, who have mastered the mind and are free from desires by the practice of renunciation, attain the highest perfection of freedom from action. So this shloka 49 in chapter 18, which is the final chapter, is the final state, the highest perfection in terms of freedom from action and not getting bound by the karma is the state or the goal which we need to attain. And for this, the purification of the mind is mandatory. It's very important. Now, this reminds me about a very famous shloka by Adi Shankaracharya, which is mentioned here. It says, the supreme purifier, the absolute only one, is the one everlasting cause behind everything. And it is itself uncaused and unborn. It is because of it that anything and everything is known to our consciousness. It is the light of all lights. It is neither the waking, nor the dreaming, nor deep sleep. It is beyond all these three. It is the fourth, the Turiya. And why is it that it is so important for purification of mind? And it's not just the purification of mind, it's the purification of all the sheaths, which is important. Because what Patanjali Yoga Aphorism says, it says that suppose a sadhaka means the person who is doing practice, abhyasa, working towards this path, is trying to purify his mind. He has to exclude rigidly from his mind all impure thoughts and emotions to make his mental vehicle or Manomaya Kosha vibrate to the highest and purest thoughts until the ordinary coarse material of vehicle has been completely replaced by the finest and subtlest matter which can respond to only pure and lofty thoughts and emotions. So what in effect we are doing is purification is the process of changing the polarity of our skandhas, and which are nothing but the aggregates or the heaps also in Buddhist terminology. And we are attuning our vehicles or sheets to the highest possible vibration. If this is accomplished, then very vibratory capacity of the vehicle is completely changed, and it becomes very difficult for the sadhaka to entertain any impure thoughts, in the same way as it is difficult for a licentious person to entertain pure thoughts. But suppose he gives up the effort after making some progress, then the original conditions tend to reassert themselves gradually. And if he reassumes the practice after considerable time, the process of purification has to start again. So the idea is that because so many lives we have spent in a diagrammatically opposite direction, we'll have to put in equal and proportional effort to rectify that, and a continuous effort, because the natural tendency would bring back our mind or our sheets and or our sheets in the previous state. So it's a very uh, persistent continuous effort, and here is where the paramita virya is important, the dauntless energy, and it's a continuous effort. That is why it is 24/7 meditation. So we dedicate a few minutes or hours in a day for a dedicated meditation. But this is a 24/7 meditation because every moment of our life, we are working on all these principles. Now here, the supreme purifier, why is it called the supreme purifier? Because keeping this at the back of our mind, we will not fall and get deluded to the idea that we are the doer, and also not get attached to the situations of life, hence the supreme purifier. This same idea is also explained in the um, uh, Mandukya Upanishad. So in Mandukya, we know that there are three states of consciousness leading to the fourth one. So we can also relate this to the page 200 diagram of Secret Doctrine, wherein globe D is actually the Jagrat waking, and then the Swapna dream, the astral, then Shushupti deep sleep, and then Turiya. So Mandukya Upanishad says that we are actually the true us is the fourth, and fourth in Sanskrit is known as Turiya. So we are the fourth. All the three states, Jagrat, Swapna, Shushupti, that is waking, dream, and deep sleep, periodically arise and then settle down or go back in Turiya itself. So the awareness is Turiya itself, the consciousness or the real state is Turiya itself. Everything being illusionary arises periodically and then subsides in Turiya itself. So, and here we saw mention about um, these states, which is also related to another interesting topic, which is given in the Secret Doctrine with reference to Kabbalah, the three lights. So it talks about the three lights on page 432 of volume 1, wherein it says there are three kinds of lights, and the fourth, which interpenetrates the others. The first light is the clear and penetrating, known as the objective light. The second is the reflected light, and the third is the abstract light. So three lights. The fourth one is interpenetrating, and it's the substratum of these three lights. So this light, the fourth one, we realize that it forms the basis. It is the uh, the substratum on which everything is existing. So if you were to map it to, again, page 200 diagram, on the right side you see the four states, and on the left hand side you see these lights. So waking is connected to objective light, swapna dream is connected to reflected light, deep sleep connected to abstract light, but Turiya is connected to the substratum, the interpenetrating light. Now, this information, let's keep at the back of our mind. We will refer to it in the future classes. And before we proceed to understand Bhakti Yoga, it is very important to understand the preconditions or qualifications necessary to practice Bhakti Yoga effectively. Because even though without these preconditions and qualifications, we can start. However, it will not provide us the desired results. So, what are these preconditions and qualifications? We have 9 of them. And these preconditions and qualifications are very important to understand. So, the first one is Viveka. Viveka means discernment between self and non-self, eternal and non-eternal. And we saw in our initial session in Sankhya Yoga that is the first class, that we are none of these bodies or sheets. We are the Atman, the witness consciousness. So this understanding, this discrimination, when applied to our life and everything, forms the basis of Viveka, the first precondition qualification. The second is Vairagya. And we have seen Vairagya, and we understood that in Vairagya, there are 4 different levels. And Vairagya means the disappassion of non eternal, for the non eternal. We also saw everything is temporary in this world, everything is illusionary. So based on this, we further realized to a great extent that actually running after desires and worldly things is of no use. So vairagya is the second important qualification which is required. And then comes sama. Sama is quietude of the mind, that is, focus of the mind on higher truths. This we discussed. If there is no trace of any desire left in us, then the mind will be calm. And this calmness comes with the understanding of the real nature. So, when we stop running after desires and worldly things, automatically we will start experiencing, will start to experience the peace of mind. And when there are no desires left at all, because we have reached the fourth stage of vairagya, then this quietude of mind will be achieved to the maximum potential. And then comes dhamma. Dhamma is control over the sense organs. So we also saw that the senses are just an instrument, a kind of a channel which provides us the input from the external world. So, for example, we are not living for the pleasures of senses. Like the voice of silence says, the wise ones tarry not in the pleasure grounds of senses. So, we observe the inputs from the senses, but we do not get carried away by them. For example, when we eat food for the nourishment of the body, but we do not eat for the taste. So, similarly, when we read a book, we are attuning our thoughts to the higher thoughts and getting seed thoughts for contemplation. And we are not reading the book for the pleasure of reading, and so on and so forth. It can be applied to everything. So, control over the sense organs. And if you see, each precondition is actually building on the previous one. So, we have then oparati. Uparati is withdrawal from too much engagement with the external world. So slowly the sadhaka or the disciple or the student uh, automatically at this stage withdraws from the external world. And what does withdrawal mean? Means stopping or reducing unnecessary interaction and waste of time in the world or in the worldly things, to perform those actions which are only essential and not waste time in sensual pleasures or worldly things. And then comes this the concept of the samadhana. So samadhana, that is, after having withdrawn from the world, what happens that we get more time and energy to focus on the higher thoughts, living the higher life, and always keeping our mind attuned with the higher themes. So we start spending our days in that direction. And then comes a next qualification which the student needs to work upon is titiksha. Titiksha is fortitude. That is, no matter what happens in life, I will pursue my goal of living the higher life and also become indifferent to pleasure and pain. And the next qualification is shraddha. So shraddha means firm faith in the teaching of the scriptures and whatever your uh, teachers have given. So in our case, the teachings and the teacher itself is the entire literature and teachings of Theosophy which the wise ones have provided us. So even though we might not completely understand all of this or all of these teachings initially, but until we uh, keep on putting in effort and we are persistent, and at the same time we keep analyzing, contemplating uh, on these teachings and try to live our life accordingly, this qualification of shraddha is valid. And then comes the final one, the mumuksha shutva. So mumuksha is the person who reaches a state of intense yearning to know the truth. There is nothing important in his or her life apart from knowing the truth and reaching the highest possible state possible in human body. So, for example, if you take a person's head and immerse it in water and keep it immersed, suddenly he will be yearning for breath, and only thought in his or her mind will come is, I need to breathe. So similarly, if there is only one thought in the mind of the student that he needs to know the truth and nothing else is important in the world, then he reaches this, or he fulfills this qualification. Another example is given is that if somebody's hair catches fire, he will not think about anything, neither his bank balance or his property or his family or anything. The first thought will come is how I should extinguish this fire. So that one thought, which is very important, is the thought about knowing the truth and coming out of this samsara, the cycle of birth and death. And once we have, or we start working towards these qualifications, then we become capable, or rather qualified, for the bhakti yoga. So we may not have all these from day one, but these, let's keep at the back of our mind, are mandatory and required, because before walking on the path of bhakti, if purification of our lower nature is not done, and we do not have these qualifications, so what will happen is that it will not provide the desired results as per the bhakti yoga. Now, why we keep on emphasizing on mind purification is, for example, practically, if you see, if you randomly pull a person from the streets and make him hear our Bhagavad Gita class, or maybe a Secret Doctrine class, he or she will see stars and think that all is rubbish. But only when our minds are purified and attuned to a certain degree, only then we are able to make sense of all this. But how is that? How is this happening? It's happening because the mind is purified to that degree, or attuned to that degree, so that we are able to understand these teachings. Because from here onwards, we will understand everything theoretically, but we won't get practical benefits until we have achieved these qualifications. Since these are the fundamental prerequisites, preconditions which are required, and not having these qualifications does not stop us to proceed ahead. So um, then, if we see, we have a very important shloka from chapter 12, the shloka 5, which says that for those whose minds are attached to the unmanifest, the path of realization is full of tribulations. Worship of the unmanifest is exceedingly difficult for embodied beings. Now, in the path of bhakti yoga, Sri Krishna offers two possible sub-paths or ways of devotion. So, the path of knowledge, or the path of devotion, he says, is difficult and fraught with lot of difficulties, primarily since we get stuck with the body-mind complex, because we think I am so and so, and even if we don't think that I am this body, because of our thoughts which are continuously happening, we may think that I am the doer in our mind. And then we may get stuck with the body mind complex again. So we again get stuck in the delusion that I am so and so, and this is my world, or this is my story. So Lord Krishna says that um, it is very important to understand that there are two ways. One is the path of um, bhakti, wherein we use name and form, which is also known as Nam and Rupa. And the other is the path wherein you straight away focus on the unmanifest. And that focusing on the unmanifest or the highest, or bhakti towards the highest, or devotion towards the highest, is actually very difficult. So he says that further in chapter 12, shloka 5, for those whose minds are attached to the unmanifest, the path of realization is full of tribulations. This we have seen. Uh, but he also says in chapter 7, shloka 30, that those who know me as governing principle of Adi Bhuta, that is field of matter, Adi Deva or Devata, the celestial gods, and Adi Yagna, the lord of sacrificial performances, such enlightened souls are in full consciousness of me even at the time of death. So the other aspect is that if we are straight away not able to conceptualize, contemplate, or focus on the unmanifest, we can also focus on the uh, name and form or the manifest aspects. So there is one which is attributeless. As per Mandukya Upanishad, the unthinkable, the unspeakable. The other is the manifest, the various names and forms of the one beingness. And we can think of various gods and goddesses. But if you are not able to focus on the unmanifest and meditate on the unmanifest, use the path where you are using names and forms. And even this path of names and forms will reach to the highest. So if you see page 200 diagram again, everything in the four rupa planes, starting from the third plane, is the manifested aspects. So when we use the word Ishvara means that the third logos and all its potencies and expressions. So these four rupa worlds are nothing but expressions of the one. Going back to the initial supreme purifier shloka which we saw, everything is based on the substratum of that one reality. Everything is nothing but an expression of that one consciousness itself. There is only one consciousness, but there are many expressions of that one consciousness. So these four rupa worlds has many shaktis or forms of that one beingness or one being, if you may call, because of the third logos. But all together, all these aggregated together is labeled as Ishvara. So the third plane which we see here, the third logos where it exists, when differentiation starts, we have all the forms and the Shaktis and the various forces. Either we can focus our mind on that and slowly go to higher and higher degrees, and then with bhakti and devotion reach the highest possible, the third logos, and then even further, or else we straight away start at the level of the third logos and start further. So it depends on the student and depends where we are currently while we are on this journey. Now, each path demands that we have complete sacrifice and renunciation. So we discussed about karma yoga initially. Now, karma yoga means that how does our actions uh, 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 become non-conducive of creating karma? Because karma means actions. But karma yoga only happens when our actions are transformed into selfless, non-attached actions. And then comes Raja Yoga or Dhyana Yoga, the path of Patanjali. Here, renunciation is entirely based on material nature, wherein Patanjali Yoga is based on Sankhya. So, the doctrine of Sankhya says that we are actually pure consciousness. In fact, each one of us, the reality of each one of us is that we are pure consciousness. But the reason we are suffering or we are getting deluded is because we have associated ourselves with the body mind complex. And the only way to come out of this suffering is to distinguish between self and non self, between Purusha and Prakriti, and between pure consciousness and its various expressions. So, or you can say between the spirit and matter. So, here the renunciation practice is actually giving up all the associations and attachments with personality, non attachment with our life, with our belongings, with our family, with our job, but yet performing our duties with a very equal minded state. So, next, again, the other form is the Jnana Yoga, wherein renunciation is at the highest level. Um, uh, so, in that case, we understand that there is only one reality, and everything is based on that one reality. So, one consciousness. And the moment we see any other person or any other form, we realize that this is just the outer covering of that person or form. Deep down, it is that same pure consciousness. So, what happens at the level of Dhyana Yoga that there is neither me or you, there is only that one pure consciousness at the back of our mind. Even though we are doing our daily transactions with people and we need to have that idea of me and you and interact with the world, but at the back of our mind, at the level of Jnana Yoga, we understand that there is only that one being, one consciousness in everybody and everything. So, in effect, what I'm trying to share here is that all the yogas, starting from Sankhya, Karma, the Raja Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, are all interconnected. Now, coming back to Bhakti Yoga, uh, there are lots and lots of important teachings in this. And a very important reference I would like to make here is about Lord Narada. Narada was a, or rather is a great rishi, or we can also think of him as a Nirmanaka. And H.P. Blavatsky has mentioned in Secret Doctrine, volume 2, page 48, wherein she mentions about Narada. Who is Narada? Narada is one of the few prominent characters, save some gods in the Puranas, who visited the so-called neither or infernal regions, also known as Patala. In the old stanzas, Peshhun, it's a Chinese name, is credited with having calculated and recorded all the astronomical and cosmic cycles to come, to have determined the duration of all the past geological, cosmical periods and the length of all the cycles to come till the end of this life cycle or the end of the seventh race. Further, it is said there is a work among the secret books called the Mirror of Futurity, wherein all the kalpas within kalpas, that is, cycles within cycles, cycles within the bosom of Shesha or the infinite time are recorded. This work is ascribed to Peshhun, also known as Narada. And then further, Narada is the Deva Rishi of occultism par excellence, and that the occultist who does not ponder, analyze, and study Narada from his seven esoteric facets will never be able to fathom certain anthropological, chronological, and even cosmic mysteries. He is one of the fires above mentioned. So, this relates to the previous paragraph from where this excerpt is taken and plays a part in the evolution of this kalpa from its incipient down to its final stage. He is an actor who appears in each of the successive acts, root races of the present Manvantrik drama in the world allegories, which strike the keynote of esotericism and are now becoming more familiar to the reader. So, reference page 83, volume 2 of Secret Doctrine. So, why we are discussing this is because Narada had written a very important treatise on bhakti and how the yoga of bhakti or devotion can be performed. So here I have a mind map which is created. Let me sort of increase the zoom level. So here, if you see, it starts with bhakti, and there are two types of bhaktis. There is parabhakti and aparabhakti, and we are given with all the details of parabhakti and aparabhakti, which further gets aparabhakti is the lower form, wherein it goes with the Gauni Bhakti and Mukhya Bhakti, the two subdivisions, and then you have Parabhakti, which is the higher form. So I'm not going through all this, but the point of sharing this is that there is lots and lots of information and detailed step-by-step knowledge which was given by Narada in the scripture or document known as Narada Bhakti Sutra. So I will pause here, and then we can take some questions, because the next couple of slides are very heavy or intense. So let me pause here.